So this all talk about competitiveness is all bullshit.
The can being kicked down the road, well, the can was kicked way
overboard.
down.
Yeah, Kieran, that was a quite disappointing vote which we just took on the Fuel EU Maritime file, right?
It really was, and it's one of the more important Fit for 55 files, which is all about reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Europe by over 50% by 2030 compared to 1990. So a lot of exemptions, a lot of holes in this. It's like a piece of Swiss cheese, really. I was concerned about the limitations on vessels. So we hoped to include a lot of the smaller vessel types, but this will only apply to really large ships, right?
That's one of the things. And also we have those numerous exemptions on ice-class ships, which doesn't make sense because why should ice-class ships be allowed to use more dirty fuel?
Yeah.
I mean, it is not about pricing emissions, which would have been the case in the ETS. It's just about which type of fuel are you using. And so right now we're exempting the ships that will actually sail the Arctic, which is an extremely sensitive ecosystem, from having to use more sustainable fuels.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense at all.
I expected that the outlying regions, there might be some discussion as to whether they should be excluded. Personally, I don't think they should have been, but I was really surprised that the ice-class ships were excluded because we're talking about the fuel. We're not saying that, an icebreaker needs more fuel. Of course it does to get through ice, but we're saying that the fuel that's used has to have a lower greenhouse gas content. And that's fundamental to what we're trying to do. I think it'll be a real problem for the European Commission and for all the institutions, because if we're honest about the greenhouse gas emissions, we'll have to find those reductions somewhere else. And it won't be easy, because for every kind of file that doesn't achieve what it's meant to achieve, it puts more pressure on other sectors.
Other sectors, exactly. And what I found really shocking is that the majority in this parliament says shipping doesn't have to be climate neutral in 2050. We're not going to 100% greenhouse gas reduction in 2050. Yeah. We're just going down to 25%, which means that the fuel which is used in 2050 can still have 25% of the greenhouse gas emissions per kilowatt hour than the fuel used today. So if shipping increases, as it is expected to be until 2050, we might even have more emissions from shipping than we have today. And this is really not understandable.
This is a theme that's running through not just the shipping files, but the aviation files as well, where we're not talking about gradually reducing down to zero. We're saying, we'll make the planes more efficient. But if there's lots more planes or lots more ships, then we're in deep trouble. And I think, and you've argued this very strongly, we need clear targets for 2030, for 2050, and for the years in between. We need a glide path to reducing these emissions steadily over time. This sends a signal to the market. It sends a signal to the ship manufacturers, to the owners, to the owners. I mean, the rapporteur said, it's about balancing the climate and competitiveness. It's not at all. If you're not aligned to the climate goals, you're in deep trouble. And what we've seen of the extreme weather this summer, the droughts in Europe, the floods in Pakistan, we know we have to move. And if anything, we have to accelerate our decarbonisation plans.
And we have to choose a future-proof pathway. And this is not the case in this regulation as it stands now, because the future-proof pathway would, of course, be renewable fuels, renewable propulsion. Yeah. And we try to introduce a higher target for those renewable fuels, which is already enshrined in the Renewable Energy Directive, which is weird because we enshrined it there. But now the rapporteur said, I don't take care of anything that's enshrined in another legislation. Because if we would have given the signal to the market, hey, you have to have 6% by 2035, then of course we would have incentivized the building of those plants that will be needed to produce the e-fuels,
Completely.
which the shipping sector needs, aviation as well,
Yeah.
which road transport doesn't need. But no one will invest unless we set an ambitious target.
We
Even
absolutely-
industry called for it. Even the shipping industry called for it. So I really don't understand why this parliament did not support us in our call.
I think it's troubling, and all of these fuels, whether they be ammonia, RFNBOs, we need a clear signal to the market as to what the future will bring. And we didn't. The signal is quite muddied after today. And you know, Jutta, we're here at an exhibition in the European Parliament, which is all about wind propulsion, not by itself mainly, but about assisting propulsion of conventional or new vessels. And we didn't even get that into the text or into the recitals. So I was quite surprised.
It's only in with this very weird lump sum.
Yeah.
So you're not making a difference between the different kinds of wind propulsion, where we see here on those posters that the greenhouse gas reduction is strongly dependent on the technology you're using.
Yeah.
So basically, a ship with rigged sails, which can reduce up to 30%, is counted the same as a ship with a Flettner rotor, which can reduce only 5%. This doesn't make sense.
It's a pity. It's a missed opportunity. And we're going to need all the help we can get to meet the targets on greenhouse gas emissions going forward. And Europe has to lead. We're a wealthy region. The EU is very well placed to spearhead the new technologies that we need to create well-paid green jobs in producing these technologies. And sadly, the file that got approved by the Parliament today didn't go far enough. And for that reason, we said, look, we can't support it unless the level of ambition is higher.
And there was a lot of false claims, like we have to support European competitiveness. This file is about every ship entering European ports, regardless of freight, regardless of where it comes from, regardless of flag.
Yeah.
So everyone would have had to adhere to it. So this all talk about competitiveness is all bullshit. On the contrary, European shipbuilders would have had business opportunities by building clean ships. And now we're saying, well, let's give it back to China. May China do it.
Yeah, it's a real lost opportunity. We sometimes talk about the can being kicked down the road. Well, the can was kicked way
overboard.
down the road, overboard, and it may well be lost at sea. But look, I think we realise that we need more climate action. I think in general within the European Parliament, people want to do something, but it was a real disappointment today. It's a bit of an outlier compared to some of the other files. We expected more, we didn't get it, so hopefully we can come back to this in the years ahead, and with a greater green presence, really push for more ambitious action on the maritime section on ship propulsion.
And of course, we will keep on fighting. The trilogues will be coming up. We know that some member states in Council would be ready to support a more progressive position because they say our shipbuilders want to have this opportunity. Our industry producing clean fuels wants to have this opportunity. So maybe we will find allies in Council for our position. Let's go for it.
The game's not over yet.
Exactly.